Hello, friends, and welcome to the Professional Procrastinator. I'm your host, Rohila, and if you're tuning in, chances are you're ready to turn the page on your procrastination habits. Each episode is a step towards action. No guilt, just positive energy and better strategies. Let's jump in and make procrastination a thing of the past. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Professional Procrastinator podcast. This is an episode that I feel will make a dramatic impact in your life if you are willing to take the 4 steps that I'm going to outline in defining your ideal self. Recently, I was working with an individual, coaching them on some of the obstacles that keep popping up in their life. And one of the things that they had mentioned was they don't truly know how they're doing when it comes to their goals. You know, you can set a goal for 3 months in the future and you will know if you've achieved it or not if you set the goal the correct way. However, is that really the best that they can do? And that's something that I come across a lot, is people come up with goals that they feel are good goals. They're outside their comfort zone. It's going to cause them to learn and grow and expand and challenge themselves. But at the same time, how do we truly know how far a goal is going to evolve us? How far will it take us into the future towards the desired reality that we're wanting to create versus just enough to help us grow, but not necessarily reach our true potential? And I started thinking about this because this is something that a lot of people do bring up. And what is the right solution? How do you truly take something that could be subjective in terms of what am I capable of doing, and make it so you can truly see objectively if you are reaching that or not? And what I came up with are the 4 steps to define your ideal self. This was interesting because I did it myself, and what I found was I am not living up to what I am capable of doing. Again, a lot of times what we do is we'll compare ourselves to our peer group, our friends, our family, and we'll judge based off of the average of what they are to evaluate how well are we doing in our own lives. So, for example, if I take a look at my circle of friends and I say, okay, each of them is, on average making $70,000 a year, and I'm making $100,000 a year. Am I now better than them? Well, in terms of financial success, I would say so. But who's really my competition here? Is it them? Is it my circle of friends? Is it my peer group? Or, and here's the kicker, is it me? Is my real competition me against my procrastination, me against my self-limiting beliefs, me against my willingness to challenge myself? And the answer is emphatically yes. So many times what we do is we compare ourselves to other individuals to gain our level of success. But when it comes to personal development, when it comes to your life, your only real competition is how well can you do compared to the results that you are achieving in life. If I'm making $100,000 a year compared to my peer group, am I successful? Yes. If I'm capable of making $101,000 a year, am I underselling myself? Yes. So it depends on your perspective. If you are willing to challenge yourself, then you will find yourself receiving unbound success. Now, how do we go about doing this? How do we take a look at ourselves and gauge whether or not we're playing it safe or if we're truly expanding ourselves? And what I came up with, again, are the 4 steps to define your ideal self. Now, before we dive into this, let's take a look at what that means. And the thing is, it's difficult to define what our ideal self is, because what we do is we have a natural tendency to compare ourselves with others around us, our circle of influence, our circle of friends, our peer group, our coworkers. But what happens is we get caught up in our daily routines. Now think back to the caveman days when our ancestors were living in caves. Back then, the biggest stress that they had was whether or not they were going to get eaten by a bear that day. What are the stresses we have now? I can tell you, I have never, ever in my life been afraid of being killed by a bear. And I live in Washington State and I go hiking all the time. So what are the stresses that I'm facing versus the stresses my ancestors were facing? Well, they never thought about achieving their maximum potential, but that's something that I struggle with all the time. And what happens is because we are hard programmed to how our ancestors were, we tend to automate as much of life as we can so that we are on higher alert of our environment and what is going on around us. So going back to the caveman days, you woke up at the same time. You went to sleep at the same time. You drank water from the same spot because you knew it was safe. When you went out of the cave, you knew it was better to go left than to go right because there was a cliff over there. What happens is we start developing these routines, and it causes us to be on autopilot. And the same thing is true right now. If you don't challenge the way that you do things every day, you're going to do more and more things without thinking about it. Here's a perfect example. Odds are this is the morning routine of most people. You wake up when the alarm clock goes off. First thing you do is you reach for your phone to turn your alarm off and then to just check all your messages that came in during the night. Your texts and Facebook and different social medias. You might check your email. You might check your calendar to see what you've got scheduled that day. But odds are that's one of the first things that you do. Odds are when you brush your teeth, you are using the same hand to brush your teeth with, either your right or your left. Odds are if you take a shower, you're following the same routine. Maybe you start with your hair down to your body and you do your toes last. But if you think about why you do all these things, you probably don't even realize you're doing that stuff. It's just autopilot. And the more you go about life on autopilot, these routines are destroying you, not empowering you. It causes you to be reactive instead of proactive. A perfect example is when you get to work. What's one of the first things everyone does? They check their email. Well, here's the thing. Email is sent to you because someone else needs something. A customer needs something. Your manager needs something. Your coworkers need something. It's always something that someone else needs. So if you start your day in reaction to what others need of you, you are disvaluing what you are capable of, and you are being reactive instead of proactive. So with that, what are the 4 steps that you need to define your ideal self, and how do we go about doing it? Step 1, define your ideal self. Again, step 1, define your ideal self. What do you look like? What do you talk like? What is your health like? What kind of house do you live in? What do you do for a living? What kind of friends do you have? What are your intimate relationships like? Define your ideal self. Now, this can be challenging because what we do is we are so conditioned to play it safe. A house, for example. Well, if I'm living in a house that's worth $200,000 and I'm told to dream of an ideal house that I'm capable of achieving, what am I going to do? Maybe look at 300,000, 400,000, maybe somewhere around there. But that's playing it safe. That's playing it to your current comfort level. And that's what most people operate off of. Again, going back to the scenario, if I make $100,000 a year and I'm asked to stretch that, what am I going to do? Maybe double it. Okay, if I'm making $100,000 right now, if I truly apply myself, I could maybe do $200,000 a year. And then what happens is inevitably we are going to put that on a scale. So right now I'm achieving $100,000 a year based off my current comfort level, based off my current capabilities. I know what life is like. Well, if I double that, now all of a sudden I'm going to have to learn more about taxes. I have to learn more about investments. Am I going to have to work harder? What kind of a job do I need? And what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate that on a scale and come back to the $100,000 because it's safer. We know what to expect. And so already, right off the bat, we're selling ourselves short. So what you want to do in the step one is define your ideal self. We're not talking about you right now. We're not talking about Rohit right now with the current skill set that he has. We're talking about the ideal version. What do I want to do? What am I capable of doing? What am I doing right now to work towards that? Why am I settling? So again, what do you look like? What is your ideal weight? How healthy are you? What kind of house do you truly live in? I'm living in a house that is worth over $1 million. It's a 3-car garage. It's got a swimming pool in the back. I've got 2 offices just for myself. One is for my business. One is for my studios. That's the kind of stuff that we need to do. So ask yourself again, what do you look like? What do you talk like? What's your vocabulary like? What kind of house do you live in? How healthy are you? What do you do for a living? What kind of friends do you have? What are your intimate relationships like? Get specific and write it down. So that's step 1. Step 2, create a list of what that person would do every day. Again, create a list of what that person would do every day. So in this scenario, I've got my ideal self that I'm working towards, right? Well, if I want to be healthier, let's say my ideal self weighs 10 pounds less than I do right now. Well, if that's truly the ideal self, then what is my daily diet like? Right now, if I drink 2 sodas a day, would that same person drink 2 sodas a day? Would they drink any sodas a day? What kind of exercise would your ideal person do? What kind of books does your ideal person read? What's the amount of television my ideal self would watch? What kind of hobbies, etc. So think about your ideal person, right? You've created that, your ideal self. Now break down into what that person would do on a daily basis. What are the kinds of things they would eat? How often would they exercise? And here's something that's so valuable. What kind of books does that person read? Now, I can tell you the majority of the adult population does not read at all. And those that do read tend to read more fiction than nonfiction. But what kind of books does your ideal self read? So, for example, if your ideal self makes $1 million a year, do you think they're going to read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Harry Potter? That is a perfect example of what kind of stuff you need to start doing. How much television does that ideal person watch? Now, when I did this, I realized I was watching a few hours of TV every day, and I didn't even think about it because it's just kind of on in the background. Well, even if it's on in the background, it's still causing me not to be 100% focused on what I'm doing. And so now I rarely watch TV. I don't ask my friends what they're binge watching because then that will cause me to watch those same things. And that's the kind of lifestyle that I don't want. And so I tend to use my entertainment when it comes to watching TV and stuff to watch programs and series that I'm already familiar with, that I've already watched. I think that's one of the reasons why The Office was so popular when Netflix started, because it was something familiar that we could watch and not truly focus on binging. And then when lockdown happened, that's all we did. We couldn't go out. We couldn't do anything. So why not just watch Netflix all day? So again, create a list of what your ideal person does every day. Now, step 3 is understanding that that person that you've described so far is now your competition. Again, step 3 is understanding that person is now your competition, your arch nemesis, the person that you want to despise and be more successful than, the person that you see in your nightmares outdoing you every single day. Give that person an existence. find a picture of them. Maybe it's a picture of you when you were younger and healthier. Maybe it's a picture of you that you take while dream building. I can tell you that was a huge part of my early days when I was first getting into success. I would go to car dealerships and I would find the most beautiful car I could find and test drive it. I would take pictures of myself sitting there in the driver's seat from the perspective of me as the driver as I'm holding the steering wheel. I would go to open houses for houses that were worth $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. I would imagine what it was like living there. I would walk through everything. Okay, this room is going to be my exercise room. And I think this one would be perfect for a studio. This one is great for my office. I would do that kind of stuff. I would take tons of pictures of me in that environment. I would look at those pictures all the time because what that's doing is that's helping me visualize the kind of lifestyle that I want. So do that yourself. Give that competition person in existence. Find a picture of them. Give them a name. Call them something. It doesn't matter what you call them. Bill, Sue, Jennifer. It doesn't matter. But give that person a name. The more you do that, the more real it's going to be. Make this person your arch nemesis. Think about what that person is doing right now. So, for example, if you are driving to work listening to this podcast, do you think your ideal person is driving to work or do they own their own business? So right off the bat, they're ahead of you. Think about what they are doing right now in this very moment. And the last step, step 4, map everything out so you can track it. One of the biggest things is losers don't keep score. They just go about life. Winners know if they're winning or not because they do keep score. If you don't keep score, how do you know if you're successful or not, right? Like we all do it at work. At work, you know what you need to do. You have your quarterly reviews with your manager. You have your annual review with your manager. You know if you're working towards your goals or you're not. You know if you are ahead of the pace or you need improvement. In an ideal world, at least. So if that's the case, then why are we not doing that in our personal lives? Always ask yourself, what would the other person, this ideal person, be doing right now? How would they go about accomplishing their goals? The better you can map that out to their daily activity, the better off you're going to be. So let's just come up with a scenario and say my ideal self goes walking outside for 15 minutes every single day. Well, now that's easy for me to track. I can do it or I cannot. If that other person is doing it and that ideal self of mine is walking 15 minutes a day, well, shoot, I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day. Because again, I want to outdo them. That's my arch nemesis. I hate this person with all my being. I want to outdo them. I want to embarrass them. So now what I'm doing is I have the capability of tracking whether or not I'm on pace. And then the other thing is place notes around your entire house with just this simple question. What would the ideal version of me be doing right now? Or whatever you want to name this person. If it's Jennifer, if it's Bill, what is Bill doing right now? What is Jennifer doing right now? And truly think about it. Don't let this just be stimulus in the background that you get used to, but truly think about it. If you're reaching for a bag of chips, is your ideal person going to eat that bag of chips or are they doing something completely different? You have to start realizing that you need to make the decisions that your ideal person is making, not what it's going to take to get you there. Again, this is very important. Think about what your ideal self is doing right now, and that's what you need to do, not what it's going to take to get you there. Here's an example, and I'm going to pick health for example. If my ideal person does not eat any Doritos and I eat, let's say, half a bag of Doritos, well, what most people would do is say, okay, if my ideal self does not eat Doritos and right now I'm eating a bag of Doritos, I'm going to limit that by only eating half a bag of Doritos. Well, already what you're doing is you are taking baby steps. Don't think about eventually weeding out these habits that hold you back. That's not what's going to get you there. If your ideal self doesn't eat Doritos, guess what? You're not eating Doritos either. So that's what it's going to take. Whew. This was a fun episode and a lot of kind of bouncing back and forth, but some great information. So to sum it up, what we talked about today was the 4 steps that you need to take to define your ideal self. Step 1, define what that person is. Step 2, create a list of what that person does every day. Step 3, understand that is now your competition. Give that person an existence. And step 4, map out what they do every day and compare that to what you are doing. There's plenty of tips like this in my book. I'll Do It Tomorrow Ends Today, which is available on Amazon. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for spending your time with me. Hopefully, it wasn't just another form of procrastination. I'm Rohila, reminding you that sometimes later becomes never. So do it now. You deserve it.